Welcome to Grace Mitchell's Stories, where every tale reveals the quiet power of love, truth, and second chances. Today's story begins in a quiet suburban neighborhood, where one father's early return home uncovered a truth that would change his family forever. The late afternoon sun glowed warmly over the streets of Maplewood, painting the rows of houses in gold. Birds sang on telephone wires, and the distant hum of life filled the air. But for Mark Thompson, that day had begun differently. He was supposed to be away on business, another long, lonely week spent in airports, hotels, and conference rooms. As a regional manager for a construction firm, travel had become part of his routine, though it meant leaving behind the two people who meant the most to him, his wife, Claire, and their 8-year-old daughter. Sophie. Mark had always prided himself on being a provider. He grew up poor, watching his parents struggle, and swore he'd give his own family a life free from want. But in doing so, he'd missed birthdays, school plays, and dinners. He told himself it was worth it, that one day Sophie would understand. That morning, after finishing his meetings ahead of schedule, Mark decided to surprise his family. He didn't call or text. He simply boarded an earlier flight, smiling as he imagined Sophie's face when he walked through the door. It was nearly 5 p.m. when he pulled into the driveway. The house looked calm to calm. Usually by this hour, he could hear laughter from inside, the sound of cartoons, or Claire singing along to the radio. But today, there was only silence. Mark frowned. Maybe they'd gone out. Still, something tugged at him. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air felt different, heavy. Almost. His suitcase wheels clicked softly against the wooden floor as he made his way to the living room. Toys were scattered across the rug, a half-finished glass of juice sat on the table, and one of Sophie's drawings lay abandoned on the couch. He smiled faintly and picked it up. It was a crayon picture, a little girl holding hands with her mom and dad, under a bright yellow sun. Only this time, the father figure was drawn in faint gray, almost erased. A chill ran through him. He set his suitcase down. "Claire," he called out. "Sophie." No answer. Then he heard it. A small, muffled sound coming from upstairs. It was crying. Mark's heart raced as he climbed the stairs 2 at a time. The sobs grew louder. When he reached Sophie's bedroom, he stopped at the door. It was slightly ajar, the light dim. He pushed it open gently. There, on the bed, sat Sophie, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Her small shoulders shook with silent sobs, her cheeks wet with tears. "Sophie," Mark whispered, stepping closer. The girl gasped and looked up. For a moment, her eyes widened in disbelief. "Daddy." Mark knelt beside her. "Hey, sweetheart, it's me. I came home early to surprise you. What's wrong?" But instead of running into his arms, Sophie hesitated. Her lip trembled. "Where's Mom?" he asked softly. Sophie sniffled, glancing toward the door. She went out. I don't know," she whispered. Mark frowned. "Has she been gone long?" Sophie nodded slowly. "Since lunchtime?" Mark checked his watch. That was almost 5 hours ago. He felt a pang of worry. "Did she say where she was going?" "No. She just told me to be good and not open the door." Mark's stomach turned. "Have you eaten anything?" Sophie shook her head. "I was waiting for Mommy." He exhaled shakily, trying to mask his anger. He couldn't believe Claire had left her alone for so long. He hugged Sophie tightly. "It's okay, baby. Daddy's here now." As he held her, he noticed something else. Bruises on her arms. Faint, yellowing marks. His chest tightened. He pulled back slightly, his voice trembling. "Sophie, what happened to your arms?" Her eyes filled again. She looked away. "It's nothing." Mark's voice softened. "Sweetheart, you can tell me, please." Sophie hugged the rabbit tighter. "Mummy was mad. I dropped her perfume bottle. It broke. She said I wasn't careful." The words hit him like a punch. "She didn't mean to hurt me," Sophie added quickly, her voice small. "She said it was my fault." Mark's vision blurred with tears he hadn't shed in years. He felt rage rising in him, not the kind that made him shout, but the kind that broke something inside. He stood up abruptly, pacing the room. "Stay here, okay? I'll be right back." He stormed down the hall, his heart pounding. Claire's purse wasn't on the counter. The car keys were gone. He clenched his fists, anger warring with disbelief. Claire had never been violent, at least not before. But lately, she'd seemed distant, irritable. When he was home, she barely spoke to him. He thought she was just lonely. But leaving Sophie alone, hurting her, that was something else entirely. He took a deep breath and returned to the bedroom. Sophie was curled up on the bed, half asleep from crying. He pulled the blanket over her and sat beside her until her breathing evened out. Then he pulled out his phone and texted Claire. "Where are you?" No response. He waited 10 minutes, pacing. Then 20. Finally, an hour later, headlights flashed through the window. Claire walked in, her expression startled when she saw him. Mark, you're home? He stood rigidly. Yes. Came home early. She tried to smile. You should have told me I'd have made dinner. Where were you? She blinked. Just out with a friend. For 5 hours. You left Sophie alone. Her face paled. She's fine. No, she's not. He snapped, his voice breaking. She was crying. Claire. Terrified, hungry, and she has bruises. Claire froze. What? Don't lie to me, Mark said, tears spilling now. She told me what happened. For a moment, Claire's composure cracked. She sank into a chair, trembling. I didn't mean to. I just lost my temper. I've been so tired, so stressed. Mark's voice trembled with disbelief. She's 8. Claire, you're supposed to protect her, not scare her. She covered her face, sobbing. I know. I haven't been. Okay, Mark, you're always gone. Everything's on me. The bills, the house, the loneliness. I snapped. Her confession hit hard because part of it was true. He had been absent, but still, nothing excused this. Mark sat down slowly, his anger giving way to grief. Why didn't you tell me you were struggling? She looked up, eyes swollen. I thought you wouldn't care. You're always working. You barely see us. He sighed, rubbing his temples. I work for this family, Claire, for Sophie. But somewhere along the way, I forgot what really mattered. For a long moment, they sat in silence, two broken people who had built a perfect picture from the outside, only to realize it was cracked inside. Then Claire whispered, I need help. I don't want to lose her, Mark. I'll do whatever it takes. He looked toward the staircase, where Sophie's small footsteps echoed. She had woken up and was standing there, rubbing her eyes. Mommy? She asked softly. Claire turned, tears streaming. I'm so sorry, baby? Sophie hesitated, clutching her rabbit. Then she walked over and hugged her mother. Please don't be sad. Mark's throat tightened. That innocence, the way children forgive before understanding, was enough to shatter him. He knew what he had to do. We're getting help, he said firmly. All of us. The next day, Mark called a family therapist. The weeks that followed were hard, full of tears, confessions, and rebuilding trust. Claire began treatment for depression and anxiety, admitting she'd been overwhelmed. Mark started working from home more often, determined to be the father Sophie needed. Slowly, the laughter returned to the house. The tension lifted piece by piece. Sophie drew new pictures, bright ones, full of color. This time, her father was no longer faint gray. He was smiling, standing tall beside her and her mom. Months later, during one session, the therapist asked Sophie to draw how she felt about her family now. She drew 3 hearts connected by strings. When asked what it meant, she said, we're all tied together, even when it hurts. Tears filled both parents' eyes. One evening, Mark tucked Sophie into bed. She looked up at him and said, Daddy, when you came home early that day, I thought I was dreaming. He smiled gently. No, sweetheart, that was real, and I'm never leaving you alone again. She hugged him tightly. Promise. Promise. When he left her room, he found Claire standing in the hallway, watching quietly. She whispered, Thank you for not giving up on us. Mark took her hand. We all lost our way, Claire, but now we're finding it again. They walked downstairs together. The house, once heavy with silence, now carried warmth, the sound of healing, of second chances, of love learning to breathe again. A year later, Sophie's school hosted a family day. Parents were invited to share stories about kindness and courage. Sophie insisted her father come, nervous but proud. Mark stood before the class and began to speak. Last year, I almost lost the most important thing in my life, my family. I thought providing meant working harder, but I learned that real love means being present. My daughter taught me that. When he finished, the room was silent. Then, one by one, the parents clapped. Sophie ran up to him and hugged him tight. As he held her, he whispered, You saved me, sweetheart. She smiled. You came home, and in that moment, Mark realized something profound. Sometimes the greatest rescues don't come from heroes in uniforms or grand gestures. Sometimes they come from a child's tear, a father's choice to listen, and a family's decision to heal together. Because love, true love, doesn't hide from pain. It faces it, forgives it, and grows stronger through it. So remember this. It's never too late to come home, not just to a house, but to the people who truly need you there. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe.